Hi and welcome to another video in the series of making databases using Access. Today we're going to be looking at actually taking our data and putting it into a database in the easiest way possible. The starting point and what we've been doing over the last few weeks is taking our raw data, our data that's at 0NF, so it has been just extracted from the client's paper books, and we've normalized this data. So normalization is a process where we create a data structure that's efficient and has no redundant data, meaning that there's no repetition of data. And through that process we took our data to here, and we've considered the relationships between our data by creating an entity relationship diagram. Our next stage is to put our data, which sits in our individual data tables here. So we're actually going to be creating this data, putting this data set into the table, into the database, and we're going to be creating the tables as we go by importing our data. And again, there's a starting point that we need to be at. We need to have the correct headings that we're going to be using for our data in our database, and we need to have our data dictionary handy so we know actually how to format the data as we're putting the data in. So each one of these data dictionaries for each table is extremely important to have thought about beforehand, because this is actually what we're going to be using to get our data in and to manage our data in an effective manner. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what we've actually called our data. I'm just going to be bring Access up. So actually, before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize that again, maximize you, and we're going to be just checking our tables. So this is our vehicles table for Clive's cars, and these are the names I've actually called each of the fields. So I just need to check in my vehicle table that they're the same, because they aren't quite. Maximize them so I can see what's going on. There we go. Also, when we were creating our data dictionary for this table, we also decided that there should be another column to let us know whether a vehicle's been sold or not. All of our historic data, our raw data, was of sold vehicles, but when this database is being used, obviously we'll be able to sell other vehicles. So we need a means of knowing whether a vehicle in our database has been sold or not. So we added this sold column. It's Boolean. It's going to be a yes or no type of data, and we can decide whether we actually type in yes or no, or use a tick box to say whether it's been sold or not, and we can do that as we set up our table. So these are the names that we're going to call. What I'm going to do is just bring our vehicle table out front. So car ID and model color. Oh, that's an interesting way of spelling color. So we're going to have vehicle ID, model color, type. So that's what they're going to be. And then we're going to have purchased, year built, and transmission. Purchase price, blah, blah, blah. That's not quite purchase price. Year built. Don't have the year built on this. Yes, we do. I'm going to swap these two around. My right click starts working. There we go. So just swap those two around, makes more sense. And then finally we're going to have our sold column, or sold field, which is going to be yes for everything. I'll just put my borders on. There we go. So this table it has the data in it, and we have the correct field names. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create our database, and this is going to be our first table that we import into Access. So we're going to create a new database. It's going to be blank, and we're going to call it Clive's Cars underscore Cars 2020. There we go. I'm going to save it into my OneDrive so I can access it from school when we eventually get back. And there we go. And create. So this will create our very blank database with Clive's Cars 2020 title. So we have a table and there's nothing in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at using this spreadsheet, which is Clive's Cars Solution, Sales Solutions 2020. I need to know exactly where this file is so I can access it from within Access. I'm just going to go, this is where it is. So it's in my 2020 planning 13 DTC database. Oh, that's the in progress one. Here it is. So West Set Boys to Planning 13 DTC database, Clive's Cars. And hopefully that's where this is as well. And there it is, Clive's Cars Solution. So I'm not going to do anything else, just I know where that is now. So the way we're going to go about this is we are going to get external data. We're going to import a new data source from a file and Excel. There we go. So I've selected that I want to, from external data, I'm going to import and link, and I've selected a new data source, and I've selected from file and from Excel. So that Access is now expecting an Excel database, so an Excel spreadsheet to be our source of data. First thing I'm going to do is browse to where the data source is. I'm going to here and there, and Clive's Cars Solution 2020, and it's in use. I'm going to close it down. And here's another version that I've got, which I'm just going to pop out of the way. Okay, so I've shut my database, sorry, my spreadsheet, and now it's given me access to it. So we're going to look through what we've got here. It says import the source data into a new table in the current database. That's what we want to do. We want to have a table with this data over here. So we're going to click OK. Okay, so now what's happened is that Access has looked through that spreadsheet and it's found all of the worksheets that are in the Excel spreadsheet. So you can see everything that I've got. So first thing we need to do is click and select the correct worksheet page, which is why on my version I've given you in Teams has each table on a separate page, and this is why, because Access wants that data to be on its own in a table. So I mean, we could do a named range, but that's a little bit more fiddly than actually put it on it a page on its own, a new worksheet in the Excel spreadsheet. So I've selected vehicle table. This is the data that we're expecting. Now we can scan along to make sure it's got the, it does that a lot. But yeah, it does have all of the fields there, so I'm going to click next. Okay, is this important that the first row contains column headings? So this is allowing us to select this first row for the names of the fields in our table. So we've done that. And then go next. Now this is the bit where it's really tempting for people to just click through and say, oh yeah, that looks right. But here is where we really need to do quite a bit of work. We need to select every field in turn and set as many of our attributes or our settings that we've set in our data dictionary, which I'm having trouble with. So we need to make sure that we're doing as much of this as possible as we import the data. So I'm going to just pop that there and then put the database. Let's see the database. Lost my database. Never mind. What I'll do is I'll get rid of that and just pop it there. Okay, so vehicle ID. So as we designed our table, we wanted our vehicle ID to be auto number, and it's a primary key, meaning that it's indexed, but duplicates are not okay. Ooh, and it's required, and we have a caption, which we'll have to set later. So field name is vehicle underscore ID. That's good. Indexed, we need to set to yes, but no duplicates, because this is our primary key. And our data type, we're going to set to long integer. There we go. So we have actually currency long integer. There we go. So this is going to create this as a primary key because it's duplicates. So it's yes, no duplicates. So we can now click along to our next field, and this is text, short text, size of 30, required, and that's the caption. So short text, indexed to no because it's not a key, not primary key or foreign key. I'm going to leave that, and that's all we can do at the moment. And color, short text, indexed no. Type, again, we were going to actually have this as a lookup, but obviously that's not here at the moment. We're just importing data, so we'll do that later. We have purchase price, so that's not indexed, and it's set to currency. Year built, it's set to double, and double is a decimal number, so we're going to set that to long integer because we don't want decimals. Index no. Transmission, we're going to have lookup, and then sold. So our new one, sold question mark, we're going to set that to yes no. There we go. So that's going to create a Boolean field. There we go. Here it says let access as, so this is talking about the primary key or the index for the table. It says access recommends that you define a primary key for your new table. Primary key is used to uniquely identify each record of the table. It allows you to retrieve data more quickly. So here access has tried to put in its own ID because it said let access add primary key. We don't want that to happen. We want to choose our own primary key, and we would select vehicle ID from the combo box there, and that's now going to set this field as a primary key in the database. And then we can click next, and we're going to leave it as vehicle table as stated in our database, vehicle table. Okay, and then when we click finish, we don't want to save import steps because we're doing it at once. There we go. So what's happened is our table's been created. Here we go. But there's also this other table, vehicle table import errors. And what this shows us is that some of the data hasn't actually been imported, and it's in the sold field. So type conversion failure. That's because in the sold field in our data, we actually had, I just put Y in the data. So Y, it wasn't recognized. So what I need to do now is go back to my table, and the reason it wasn't recognized is that the default value for Boolean is 1 or 0. 1 being true and 0 being false. So all I need to do is pop down my list and actually sold and convert all of those to 1. Put -1 for some reason, I'm not sure why. But right, so now we've got our data in our table, it's all there, just having a quick check that there's no gaps or anything. And now what we need to do is actually go into home and go to design view, which is this view here, and we need to now go through each of our fields in turn to check all of the other settings that we've got down here that we've decided when we made our data dictionary. Just gonna make that a bit smaller so you can see what's happening, and we can check our data from our data dictionary. Okay, so our first is auto number primary key required, yes, and this is what we've got. So there we go. So vehicle ID, it says long integer and it says number. What we're going to do is we're going to actually change that to auto number, but this will fail because it's already got data in it. It says once you enter data in table, you can't change the data type of any field to auto number, even if you haven't yet added data to that field. So what that's saying is that because there's data in there, because we've actually already imported that field, and there's data in there, it's not actually going to let us change it from number to anything else. So the way we need to get rid of this is fiddly, but we get there. So firstly, because we set this to primary key, we're going to uncheck the primary key button. You can tell it's primary key because it's got a little key here. So first thing, uncheck the primary key. Secondly, we're going to right click and delete rows. And yes, we do want to delete it. We know it's got data in it. And then we're going to remake that field, ID, down the bottom. Now we can set the data type to auto number, and we can check down here. It says yes, duplicates okay, but that's not right because we need to actually set this as a primary key again. And as we do that, you can see down here in the index, it changes it from duplicates okay to no duplicates. So we now have our auto number field. What we need to do is just move that to the top of the table because our primary key always comes first. So just selected that row. I'm going over to the little grey square on the left and I'm going to click and drag that field back up to the top. So when we look in our data sheet view to actually see our data, after we've saved our table, we'll see that it hasn't moved. Maybe we should go back and have a check again. Oh no, that's right there. And we can probably move that to the first column. So again, click on the grey, all of the grey headings, and click and drag over to the left. So now we have our table. So sold is now Boolean. It's 1, which is true, and everything else is fine. So we've sorted our ID. So now we're just going to go back through each of our fields in turn, and we're going to set everything else. And so our auto number's done. Our model is short text. And remember we talked about short text. The default size for short text is 255 characters, and that's overkill. And we decided we're going to set that to 30 characters instead. So 30 characters. Formats, fine as is. We have no input mask for anything required. We're setting to yes. And caption, we're setting to vehicle, actually model. That's something I forgot to do on the auto number. Let's change the caption. So let's go and do that now. Caption is vehicle ID. So remember, the caption is how the database is going to display this heading to us, even though in the database it's got the underscore. it's actually going to display it to us in the database without the underscore. That's what the caption's for. So good. So we've done everything for model. So model required, yes. 30 short text. Yes, we don't need to worry about anything else for the time being. Color, again, it's actually put a size in. So for our color on our data table, we're going to have it set to 20. I don't know, too many large. Aquamarine might be quite big. Required, yes. And a caption is color. And then keep going. So type. Now type is where we're going to have our lookup. And our body type. So what we're going to do is get rid of this and have that as a lookup wizard. There we go. I want the lookup wizard to get the values from another table or query. Nope, I want to type them in. There we go. So here is where we're actually going to type in our values for our lookup. And here they are. So we've got coupe, which you can copy and paste in. We've got convertible, copy and paste, hatchback, MPV, SUV. So coupe, convertible, hatchback, MPV, SUV, and that's all we've got there, isn't it? Just put the filter on to check. So convertible, yep, coupe, yep, hatchback, yep, MPV, yep, SUV. So they're all the ones that we have. So next, type, yes, limit to list, allow multiple values, no, and boom, there we're done. So now our type is short text, because that's what we've put in it. We've got, and now again, we've got 255. We're going to restrict that down to 20. Format required is yes. And 0 length. Yeah. Great. And then next, currency is our purchase price. Price purchased is gone to currency. So this is like the counting. If it's minus, it's going to be red, which is never going to be minus because people don't give things away. Decimal places, auto input mask, caption. Oh, price purchased. Validation rule. Nope. Okay, so that's good. A year built. We put a lot of work into our year built, so we're actually going to do some validation here now. So firstly, it's a long integer, good. We're going to have 0 decimal places. Input mask, we're going to go for 4 numbers. Caption is yeah. Built. Validation rule is, so for the validation rule, we said it's going to be between 1920 and now. So just click the ellipses at the end and it gives us this expression builder. And I'm going to leave that for now and come back to that, because that's pretty much, when we look at validation, it's pretty much a video on its own. So I'm going to leave that for the time being. But I've put in an input mask of, it probably needs to be, yep, 4. And that's all we're going to do for the time being. We'll have our validation text and validation rule when we look at that video. Transmission, short text. Again, we're going to have a lookup. So do a lookup wizard. I'll type in the list, and we've only got manual. Oh, I'll click in the box. and sold, yes or no. We've done that. We've done our Boolean, and what we're going to do here is we've set this to yes, no. Down here in the format, we can actually select it to say yes, no. So rather than having the ones or the minus ones and the zeros, we can actually set the format of this to actually say yes or no by clicking on there. Now we can see what that looks like. Yes, we do. Data may be lost. Yes, 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 yes. So now all those minus ones have been turned to yeses, which is cool. And our data all looks good. We go back to design view, and there we go. Caption we want to put in, which is sold question mark. Validation rule. There we go. So did I put the caption in for that? Transmission type. Transmission and year built. Caption. Purchase price. Caption for that one is body type. Color we've got, model we've got, and caption vehicle ID. So there we go. So that's our data in, and we've been through the field properties, and we've matched as much as we possibly can with our field properties in our data dictionary that we did earlier. So hopefully that makes heaps of sense to you. One thing we can do before we move on is, now we've dealt with this table import errors, we can actually close it. Yes, we do want to save changes, and now we can actually delete this table because that's been dealt with. That's gone. So here's our original table, which we can get rid of as well, because we're going to import all of our data. We won't need table 1. And there we go. So we're left with our vehicle table. All of our fields and all of the table properties are set. There we go. And all we have left to do is look at the year built and do some validation, which I'll do in a little video very soon. So hopefully you can follow that. Any questions, don't forget to post something on Teams. All good. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.